another flying video with flight level 180. Today I'm doing a video that I've been intending to do for a little bit. The idea for this came up when I was flying Xplane for about a year, and then I was starting to get a little bored with, what the heck should I do now? Because it's not like FSX, the old days when you had missions and, fun things to do that made it a little bit more interesting. It's pretty much a blank slate. So I did some searching on the web and looked for ideas as to, what are some interesting things to do in Xplane, and there really wasn't much out there. So I came up with my own list. I actually have two lists. I have a list of easy things, easier things, and a list of more difficult things. This video is focused on the easier things, and then I'll do another video for the more difficult things. The idea here is that you are someone who understands how to fly airplanes. You're good at the Cessna or the Bonanzas or whatever it is in the game, and you understand the fundamentals and are now looking to expand beyond that. So this is sort of an idea of what can I do to make things fun and to keep learning, but just move to the next level. So let's jump right in. So Xplane, again, is not gamey at all like FSX. There's no missions, there's nothing like that. There's a few little things you can do that are interesting, but not a ton. So what do you do when you master the basics? And so Xplane is really amazing for going beyond the basics just because it's so realistic. If you really understand how to fly and control the airplanes and start them and stop them and navigate, you really pretty much are pretty close to what you'd be doing in the real world, and it's just an amazing thing. And it's not really as true in the other simulators. If you fly, I love the visuals in the new flight simulator 2020 or whatever it is from Microsoft. But, it just doesn't feel like the real airplane for me, and I just don't enjoy it because it feels just so gamey. Well, Xplane really feels very close to the real thing, so it's great from a realism perspective. So here's what I recommend you do. This is what I do, and this is, I think, makes sense for, the people who are using Xplane. They should be pushing their limits, take and do things that you aren't comfortable with and you wouldn't feel comfortable with and doing in a real airplane. An example of that is flying IFR approaches to minimums or something like that. Not something most people are going to be really comfortable with, until they have a lot of experience doing it, but you can do it safely in Xplane. The second thing I try to do is to fly as professionally as possible. And we'll go into this, but use checklists, do flight planning, think about what it takes to fly the airplane correctly and not damage the engine, for example. Try to take it to the next level of doing it like it's real. The next thing is I like taking risks that would be unsafe in a real airplane. So if I am, for example, somebody said to me the other day, why don't you try approaching this airport at 180 knots to 1 mile till the touchdown point and see if you can get it slowed down and touch down safely. Well, I'm not about to go out in a real world airplane, in this case it was a Bonanza, and try that, and until I'm with an instructor or if I feel pretty comfortable, I've tested it out. So it's a great thing to do to try that and, not worry about dying. And there's a lot of things like this, engine out failures, practicing getting down with a fire, massive failures in multiple systems, things that, aren't necessarily safe in the real world, but you can try in a sim. And the last thing is just try to become a better pilot. Try to do everything more correctly, and Xplane is great for that. And as you can see here, we're in a 172. We're flying over the Grand Canyon. This is northern Arizona, southern Utah, and there's actually some great VFR flight routes that you can fly through here. And I downloaded one on the internet. I'm going to leave the link in the description so you can actually try it. But you can just plug the flight plan into your FMS and off you go, and you can fly right through the canyon. It's pretty cool. But anyway, let's keep rolling. So my first suggestion, and this is one that I really enjoyed and it's made a huge improvement in my enjoyment of Xplane and how I use it, is purchasing an AFB. So you need a tablet. You know, if you're going to do ForeFlight, you need an iPad. If you're going to do Garmin Pilot, you can do it in either Android or the iPad. Maybe Xavion is another product that's good. But get an AFB and suck it up and pay the price and use that in conjunction with Xplane. And just, I'm going to see if I can pull up a screen capture. I've done a video on using ForeFlight in this, but that's not the one I want. I want this. So here is a screenshot of the ForeFlight window, and you can see it connects perfectly with Xplane. You know, it thinks, as far as I can tell, it thinks we're in a real airplane. I really can't tell the difference between Xplane and Xplane ForeFlight, and you know, when you're in a real airplane and you know how it behaves. It's really good, very impressive, and it really takes flying to the next level, because most general aviation pilots, you know, they're using for VFR flights, they have an iPad on their lap, but are flying the magenta line. And you know, it's a great tool. It gives you incredible awareness of where you are. It lets you plan. It lets you do things in a professional and real world way. It's just a great tool. And let's see, it's really easy to connect it to Xplane. Let's see, I popped up, and you can use it for a lot of things: route planning, weather planning, traffic planning, watching for traffic in the air, and such forth. Is great. The link is up above here for the video. Please check that out if you want to learn more about how to use that. Another thing, and this is a little more dry, but you know, it's a great way to come up with ideas of things to practice, is practice the ACS Standards for private pilot. And there's a link in the description. Open it up. It gives you a list of maneuvers and the tolerances you need to fly them through. It's a very clearly spelled out list of basic maneuvers that you need to fly to pass your private pilot check ride. And if you can do all these things within the permitted ranges, you can control the airplane and you know what you're doing, and that will transfer into a real world airplane if you're headed in that direction. So some of the things on the list are power on stalls, soft field takeoffs, steep turns, you know, to 45 degrees, slow flight, and such forth. And they're basic maneuvers, but they're things you're going to have to know when you train for your pilot license, or you know, even if you aren't going in that direction, it's, you know, it challenges your abilities and gives you something to practice that are, you know, very real world that you need to know. Another thing that I like doing is practicing basic failures. And to start, I recommend, you know, doing basic failures. Go and fail your directional gyro and see if you can navigate from the compass. Go and fail your attitude indicator or your alternator and see what that does. You know, learn about this stuff. Like, what do you do if your alternator fails? Well, that means now you're relying on battery power. And so what do? You turn off your lights. You turn off anything that's using excess electrical power. And, you know, you try to get down within 15 minutes. Get the airplane on the ground, because you're going to lose, you're going to use your radios, you're going to lose your nav, and such forth. So another thing is, you know, stop using ForeFlight and GPS. And it's amazing how blind you feel when suddenly you're lost without GPS and without ForeFlight. Another thing I recommend doing is engine failures on takeoff. So this is great from a testing perspective. You know, at what point do you actually try to turn back 180 degrees and land? And at what point do you try to land straight ahead? Well, that's something that varies based on airplane and your skill level. You know, take and try that out and see what you can do. You know, maybe it's 1,000 feet in whatever airplane you're flying or such forth. It's a really great experience, and it's amazing. It's challenging. It's something that takes some skill and practice to get good at. So give that a try. And the way I do it is I just pull the mixture when you get up to a certain number of feet. That's one way to do it. Or you can take and set it to a specific altitude in Xplane where it will fail at a specific altitude, or you can actually set a keyboard combination to fail things. Another one of my favorite things to do to practice is engine out failures. And the way I recommend doing this is using Get Me Lost. And what you do is you go up to this window right here, and you change location, and you type in Get Me Lost. And what that is, you can see it doesn't really tell you what that is. It says a random location. And what that does is that, let's go back. So I'm not going to do that. But what that does is it takes you and just throws you into a random, resume current flight. What that does is it just throws you into a random place somewhere in the continent you're in. So I fly in North America, so, I'll end up over Iowa at 10,000 feet, and basically then you kill the engine and use your ForeFlight or your map or your eyes to figure out where you're going to land. And it's a great exercise because it makes it really easy to practice these engine failures, and you learn the timing and the speed you need to approach the fields. And it's not something that's intuitive, really. I find that I always feel like I need, what I think I need in speed, I actually need more than that to actually make it to the runway once I drop my flaps and my gear. So anyway, I think it's a really fun activity, and if you did that once a day, it would make you a much better pilot. Land on an aircraft carrier, and so this is something I don't know if people know they know how to do, but you can actually go and select an aircraft carrier on the map page. You hit M, and then you take and select final approach for that aircraft carrier, and it puts your airplane right on the final approach, 1 mile or 3 miles, and then try to put it down safely on the deck. It's fun, it's interesting. I recommend a 172 to start. A bigger airplane is pretty hard to stop on the deck, but that will teach you some skills to actually do that. It's a fun little gamey thing to do, and it's pretty cool. Another thing that I do a lot, this is a little more dry, but man, it's great to give you full control of the airplane, is try to fly perfect patterns. I have a link up here to my pattern learning video. This is for complex airplanes, for Bonanzas specifically. But try to fly the pattern correctly. Get your speeds correct. Make sure you're flying a square patterns with the winds. Make sure you're flying the pattern correctly. See if it's a right pattern or a left pattern. You can just do loops around the pattern. That's one way to do it. Or fly from airport to airport and do your entries correctly. You could do a standard downwind midfield entry, or you can do a cross midfield teardrop, or try some things that aren't standard. Try doing a straight in where their air traffic control says I need to speed up pick up your speed and land straight in, or maybe a 2 mile left base. It's things you need to mix up and practice to get good at. And I think it's really fun. It really improves your skills and teaches you real world activities. Wind, and this is really fun. And I really like flying real world conditions in Xplane. It's great. You just leave it on real world conditions, and you find a place that has the conditions you want, and that prepares you for the real world because you're flying in the real world. So what I do is I use windy.com, and let me pull up my window here. And if you haven't seen this is just a great tool. What it is you can pull it, I think it goes anywhere in the world, and it uses wind forecasts to show you the current conditions. So what I'll do is I'll say, I want a really windy day with non-standard winds. And pretty quickly you're going to get a sense of the wind patterns in the area you're flying in. And I'm looking here, and usually the wind is north to south in Texas. So my suspicion is that, to get a good crosswind airport, like right about here is maybe a good part. So you can click on it, it tells you the wind speed, or maybe here. there's an 8-knot crosswind. My bet is that all these strips in that area are going to be north-south, so you can fly with an 8-knot crosswind. Or if you want more wind, you could go and, here's some pretty serious ones right here in Casper area. Nah, maybe not too great, but you could just click around here and find one that works for you, and it's really fun. Practice your landings with different techniques. Try a long slip and get used to landing. Start slipping 15 seconds out from the field and just slip right into the field. Or try using a very quick slip where you get right over the threshold and then kick out your rudder and move your wing, your upwind wing into the wind to stop your movement horizontally. It's really a great thing to practice. It's very difficult until you get used to it, and it's just a great skill set. So give that a big thumbs up. And let's jump to the next page here. And this one, I think, is not many people do this. And, I'm a little bit more hardcore than your typical person, but I recommend learning the art of flying. And this is, if you go and you take flying lessons with your typical 300-hour CFI, he's going to teach you what you need to do to pass the check ride. This is how you fly S-turns. This is how you start the airplane. This is how you fly a pattern. Well, that's all well and good. But the real art is learning how to do things as perfectly as possible. Go and get a book like Stick and Rudder. Pretty close to the surface here, but I think we're clear. Go and get a book like Stick and Rudder and read through it and learn the details of how to control the airplane in the best possible manner. Read Mountain Flying, which is another excellent book about how to fly through high level terrain. Read Positive Flying, which is a book that talks about specific airplanes, like what speeds and power settings to set in order to get the performance, the landing performance, and the cruise performance, and the takeoff performance you want. Read type-specific books. For example, I really like Flying the Beach Bonanza, which is by John Alcobar. It's a really excellent book about very specific details on the airplane. Where is it stable and yaw and pitch and so forth? What are the things you need to worry about? What are the recovery maneuvers? And then you take that into Xplane and you practice it. And then the last thing, which I think is the number one recommendation I have for anybody who really wants to learn about flying, is to go and read Pelican's Perch. And these are a set of 100 or so articles that were published in the early 2000s, written by John Deacon. And they are the content when it comes to flying, engine management, IFR, etc. And they are great, they are detailed, they're difficult, but if you read those, you will know more than, and you understand those, you will know more than 80% of the real world general aviation pilots out there, because most of them took their lessons and they don't bother learning beyond that. But, if you want to go out and learn about manifold pressure and what it does when it does, and if you want to learn about the mixture knob and how to fly lean a peak and rich a peak and why you do that and where you fly and where you don't, go read those articles. They're fantastic and they will make you understand so much more. A bit of frustration I have with after reading those articles is a lot of the airplanes in Xplane are not realistic when it comes to engines and how they operate. For example, this is I think it's the Just Flight 172, and it's just it's not very realistic when you get the engine temperatures when you change your mixture and such forth. But there is a way to solve that, and it's using the Reality Expansion Pack. The REP airplanes are the guys do a very good job of understanding how mixture works and how RPM works, and they've modified the airplanes to use that stuff correctly. And I recommend buying those. I think it's about $20 an airplane, and there's about 15 or so airplanes that they have the package for. So strongly recommended. If you really want to get to be good, that's good stuff to read. And that's it. Those are my suggestions for for people that are kind of mid-range skill-wise or just looking for some fun things to do. The next video is going to be about fun things to do for advanced pilots. I think you're going to find some of those to be a lot more challenging. So depending on your level, maybe they're just going to be too much for you. But anyway, I hope that helps. I hope that gives you some ideas to think about. If you have suggestions for other fun things to do that entertain you when you're doing Xplane, please throw them in the comments, and I think everybody would be happy with that. And have a good day.